Ukraine continues to defend its independence, and there is some news for today. Before we begin, please don't forget to like this video, write some comments and subscribe this channel to show your support for the Ukrainian people. How the events at the front will develop and under what conditions the Ukrainian breakthrough is possible. The Russian occupiers have deployed to the Kupiansk-Liman direction about 130,000 troops, more than 2,000 of heavy equipment and 800 artillery systems to distract the Ukrainian Armed Forces from the south of Ukraine and Bakhmut. This is what is called active defense. When troops are defending themselves, they sometimes launch a counteroffensive in some places to distract the enemy's forces and slow them down. Are the armed forces of Ukraine able to hold back the Russian invaders there? The Ukrainian army have been holding the line for months, and the Russians tried to launch a major offensive at the beginning of this year, but it failed. And during the months of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the Ukrainian soldiers liberated more territory than Russians captured. As for Bakhmut, the Ukrainian task is very clear. They will not take the city with frontal attacks, as this will lead to heavy losses. When the Wagners captured the city, they lost its soldiers on every 42 centimeters of land. They walked over their own corpses. The Ukrainian army are trying to surround Russian occupiers in Bakhmut from the north and south. If you look at the map, there are high grounds around Bakhmut that need to be captured for full fire control. The city is located in a lowland. As soon as the Ukrainian soldiers take those high grounds, gain a foothold and bring in heavy equipment, the Russians will have three options: withdraw, surrender or destroy. Now the Ukrainian army are gradually pushing Russians out of their positions north of Bakhmut. Obviously the road to Soledar may open up. It would be nice to liberate it, because it would be a serious blow to the Russian military. Russian propagandists are furious. They say the Ukrainian armed forces have already liberated half of Verbova in the south of Ukraine, and they do not plan to stop. Heavy equipment is already on the outskirts of the village. The Ukrainian defense forces continue to advance in the south and liberate the Russian occupied territories. The Ukrainian soldiers have reached the second line of defense. It is likely that a fierce battle for Tokmak will begin in the near future. Unlike the first line of defense, the second line has many passages. Therefore, it's necessary to find them or neutralize the minefields. Then there are a lot of trenches. The Ukrainian armed forces managed to make a big gap. They have passed the first line of supply, and there are heavy battles on the second line, where there are personnel, a network of pillboxes and trenches. Up to the Perekop Isthmus, with the exception of places like Tokmak, the Russian enemy no longer has fortified positions. It is difficult to advance on the Berdyansk and Melitopol directions. The so-called Surovikin line is powerful there, although due to the Ukrainian armed forces alleged landing on the left bank of the Dnipro river opposite Kherson, the Russians are in a dilemma whether to move troops to Kherson or leave them in Zaporizhia region. There will be no breakthrough here until the Ukrainian army bleed Russians out, that is, minimize the intensity of artillery fire. As soon as the Ukrainian armed forces see that Russians are starved of shells and lack artillery systems, only then will it be possible to advance on land. The situation is such that the Ukrainian army have slightly suspended the offensive due to mined fields and heavy fire. This is far from disaster. Right now the Ukrainians are destroying logistics, warehouses, infrastructure and Russian artillery. During the months of the counteroffensive, the Ukrainian army managed to identify both weaknesses and strengths. They had to understand how Russians would counteract them. And now we see that the main bet was on densely mined approaches to Russian positions, so we will have to proceed from this reality. Many Western analysts say that if the NATO army faced such a situation, it would simply carpet bomb the minefields and the first line of defense. B-52s would have arrived and plowed everything up. Unfortunately, the Ukrainian armed forces don't have them, which is frustrating, but they have to work with what they have today. At the same time, ATESH informs that Russian occupiers leave their permanent locations in Crimea due to fear of Ukrainian army strikes. In particular, according to the movement, the command of the Nakhimov military school in Sevastopol evicts cadets from their barracks at night and look for places in all hostels and hotels. This is happening in many military units, but they cannot hide, because the Ukrainian army have eyes and ears all over the peninsula. The Russian occupiers will either flee or be destroyed. This is all interesting news for today for you. Please do not stand aside. Support Ukraine. Like this video, write some comments and subscribe this channel. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes.